This is Leafs Morning Take with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill.
Now we've got a fight started here right off the bat with Rosehill.
30 minutes of live, nonstop Leafs talk starts now.
Leafs Nation, you've waited for this day for 19 years. Round 2, Game 1 against the Florida Panthers coming right up. Let's do this. Presented by Botano and Skip. It's a Tuesday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Nick Alberga with you. Jay Rose will be by in about 5 or so with another installment of 3 Hits with Rosey as he gives his thoughts on Game 1 here between the Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers in Round 2. Now, 8 teams remaining. Of course, we found out last night the New Jersey Devils beating the another team that struggled, by the way, with winning first-round series. I believe the first time in 11 years, I want to say, for the Devils advancing to Round 2. They'll take on the Carolina Hurricanes, and in the Western Conference, you have Vegas and the Edmonton Oilers, and, of course, Dallas and the Seattle Kraken. So looking forward to that. Remember to subscribe, tap that like button, leave us a review wherever you're checking us out at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube, at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. If you're watching right now and are not subscribed, I don't know what you're doing. We've been bringing nothing but the hits the last couple weeks here as we move forward in the Stanley Cup Playoff. So please subscribe, hit that like button. Again, it's at the Leafs Nation 401. Additionally, we're available wherever you find your podcast. Just search Leafs Morning Take. You'll be able to suss us out and make sure to subscribe and all that. Like our shows, and we continue to bring the heat, as mentioned. Don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com for the very latest on all things Toronto Maple Leafs. I'll have a pregame piece up in about 45 or an hour from now, so make sure you check that out over at theleafsnation.com. If you have thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns, drop us a line in the chat down below here on YouTube, and I'll get to it a bit later on in the show. As you know by now, if you're a frequent watcher, viewer, listener to the show, we do love to have that interaction point, of the program where we sort of converse with the listeners and the watchers and talk about what you're saying in the chat. It's been on fire the last couple of weeks, so make sure to continue to do your thing today on the show. I should mention as well, coming up in about 10 minutes or so, he was there for Game 6 in Tampa. He was there for Game 4. WWE superstar and Hall of Famer, big-time Toronto Maple Leafs fan. For those of you who've watched this for a while, we had him on, I believe, in early November, but Adam Edge Copeland is going to drop by for tour number 2 here on Leafs Morning Take and get his thoughts on finally winning a playoff series and also moving forward to take on the Florida Panthers. And we'll see if he's actually going to a game once again in that series. So your questions will be answered coming up with Adam Edge Copeland. But for now, let's get over the boards. All right, so here we have it. As mentioned, 19 years in the making. Game 1, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the surprising Florida Panthers fresh off a 7-game series victory against the Boston Bruins, maybe arguably the best regular season team of all time in the Bees, and they took them down. So no doubt the Panthers will be ready to play this series and this game. I think it's such a big key for the Maple Leafs to set the tone and have better starts. Like, that's one of my major takeaways from round 1 against Tampa. A lot of terrible starts, which I think is so fascinating considering Toronto scored the first goal in 4 of the 6 games in that series. But generally speaking, from puck drop, start on time. And I know that's a Mike Babcockism, but I do feel strongly about it because I think you can set a tone specifically in this type of series against a team. There's no more Vasilevsky. It's Bobrovsky. There's some really good players on that roster. Matthew Tkachuk's been outstanding. Alexander Barkov probably has another level to get to. Brandon Montour from nearby Brantford, Ontario. Like, there's a lot of really, really good players. And I do, to that point, expect quite a bit of offense in this series and maybe a bit of a hint of what's to come. My Botano bet of the day coming up in about 15 or so. I think puck management's going to be huge too. I think from the Maple Leafs perspective, they have to clean things up. They at points and times in that series, it goes without saying, the nerves were out, the anxiousness, they look scared to lose. We saw it throughout the series, but they managed to exercise those demons and pull through. And I think from a puck management standpoint, they just have to be smarter with the puck and hold on to the puck and be cleaner with their exits and all that stuff. And I think it'll go a long way in leading to some Florida Panthers mistakes. Again, this is not the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Panthers have had a really, really good last quarter of the regular season into the Stanley Cup playoffs, but they're prone to a mistake or two. And defensively speaking, they're a work in progress, we'll call them, although they've really locked into Paul Maurice's system the last couple weeks. You can't forget that revenge narrative either. Paul Maurice, the former head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So puck management is going to be huge for me. Get to Bobrovsky. Again, this is not Andrei Vasilevsky. It's a different Russian netminder. But having said that, Sergei Bobrovsky seems to play his best hockey at times in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That's now 2 President's Trophy winners that he's taken out. A couple years back, it was Tampa. This time it was the Boston Bruins, and he didn't even start that series. It was actually Alex Lyon who, weirdly enough, started that fourth and final game with the Leafs a couple weeks back. So never sleep on Bobrovsky in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I think to that point, just get some traffic in front of him, make life difficult. You don't want the last thing you want to happen is for Bobrovsky to get in a groove, because I think it could be a long series for the Maple Leafs if that does happen. So I think a lot of what they were doing in the first round, I think it would translate perfectly to this round against the Florida Panthers. And special teams, again, another cliche point to bring up, but every series you can talk about special teams, maybe none bigger than this one. Florida allowed 11 power play goals in the first round against the Boston Bruins. And I would say the Leafs power play is pretty much on par with that B's PP. So bottom line, do damage. When you're given those opportunities, when you're given the power plays, do damage. And that's where I think this Maple Leafs team can pull ahead of the Florida Panthers moving forward. And just really, really looking forward to this matchup in general. You see on your screen, the Leafs were 3-0-1 in the regular season. You could throw everything you saw out in the regular season, because the Stanley Cup playoffs are a much different animal. We've seen it already. The first round was unbelievable. We saw a couple upsets. We saw Seattle advance, beating last year's Stanley Cup champion in the Colorado Avalanche. As mentioned, the Florida Panthers, beating the Boston Bruins. So expect the unexpected. I think everything you saw in the regular season, throw it out the window. And I think just lie on what's been, doing it for you. And obviously, Ilya Samsonov is going to be a story. Morgan Rielly, the back end for Florida, and the big boys up front for both squads. So looking forward to game one tonight between the Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers from Scotiabank Arena. Don't forget the Maple Leafs have home ice. Who expected that? We all expected the Boston Bruins, and then to that point, expected the Leafs to start on the road. They'll have home ice for this series. It hopefully could be a pivotal factor. Although you look at the first round, all the road teams are winning, with exception to, of course, the New Jersey Devils, who win Game 7 on home ice. I believe 6 of the 8 teams who advanced to round 2 won their final games of their respective series on the road. So keep that in mind moving forward. But for now, I'm going to turn things over to the one and only Jay Rosehill.
Heyo! Big game today. Game 1, round 2. Haven't said that in a while, have we, Leafs fans? But we are pumped. I want to start by talking about the Florida Panthers trying to prevent Canadians from buying tickets to come watch their goddamn team play. A little bit weird to me, man. It's an open market. Go buy the tickets if you want to, but it just tells me that they're so bloody scared that Leafs Nation's going to come down there and blow the top off of their roof, and it's probably the best thing for that barn. I've been there. It's out in the middle of the Everglades with the Gators and the outlet malls, and they have trouble filling it up a lot of the time, and, I just feel like something crazy could happen where they don't even get a sellout in the playoffs because they prevent people who actually want to come and watch hockey from doing so. But that being said, do what you want. It just shows that Leafs Nation is in their head, and they're already worried about that problem, giving us a huge advantage on the road by letting our fans come and blow the doors off that barn. But I hope that the secondary market, Leafs fans figure out a way to get down there, and we see a whole lot of blue and white tonight. That would be awesome. I'm sure they can be resourceful enough and figure out a way to get down there. Number 2, Samsonov, Bobrovsky. This is going to be a battle for the ages, I believe. I think this series is going to potentially be a long one. I know that Bobrovsky's got a little bit more experience for sure, but I just believe in this Samsonov kid, man, and he's proven that he's just gotten better and better. I think he's got the head for it and the attitude for it, and he's shown that in the first round. And, numbers being numbers, I honestly don't even know what they are comparison-wise, but doesn't really matter to me. They didn't even play the same team in the first round. What does that even mean? I'm more of an eye test guy, and we've said it before, but you need that big save in the big moment, when it looks like everyone, collectively is going on the bench because there's a huge chance, and Sammy slides over and gets a pad on it. He dives over and saves it. It's a breakaway, and he comes up big and turns it aside. You need those kinds of things, and I can't tell you what a momentum changer that can be, what a momentum saver that can be for a team, where you can rely on that guy a little bit, and you're going to make mistakes, and things are going to happen in your D zone. Things are going to break down, and if you don't have to pay dearly every time they do, and you can have a guy that can bail you out once or twice a game, we know how important these goals are and how every single goal is crucial to the end of the game and inevitably this series. So, having a guy like him is huge. We want him to continue on doing what he was doing. You can rely on him. You have faith in him. You have confidence in him. And I feel like he's only going to get better as the playoffs go on. Number 3, We just need to have a good start. The Maple Leafs, game 1 of round 1 was a bloody tragedy. And I think they had a lot going on, a lot of demons they had to exercise, and a lot going on in their heads and weight on their shoulders. I feel like they can move on from that now. Hopefully that monkey's off their back, but you can only do that so many times before it just comes to bite you and your season's over. And I think they're going to come out, they need to come out a lot stronger, and I want them to dictate the play. I don't want them to wait and feel things out and see how it goes out there. I want them to put the hammer down from the drop of the puck, get it deep, bang and crash, move your legs, hit everything that moves, snap that puck around with authority, get the heck off and get a new line on and just keep rolling them over on this Florida team and say, this is what this is going to be. We've got a team that's deep, that's full, and we're going to roll them over on you, and we've got an identity that just does not quit and you're not going to like. And that's the mentality you got to present to the Florida Panthers tonight. And let's pretend that game 1 in round 1 never happened, and they are going to clean that thing up. But honestly, expecting a good series, potentially a long series. Don't get too high, don't get too low. That's what you got to do. But I know T-Dot over there is going to be absolutely banging tonight. This is a big one, and everyone is pumped.
I love it. As per usual, Jay Rosehill bringing the heat, brought to you by our new friends over at Skip. We're happy to tell you about Mitch's Dishes by Skip using the promo code TLN15. That's TLN15 on the Skip the Dishes app. You'll get $15 off when you spend $30 or more on Mitch's Dishes. Please note that this offer is exclusive to Skip. Additionally, a portion of the proceeds will be donated to the Marner Assist Fund to combat food insecurity. Skip is currently serving up game time eats across the GTA and Ontario in the likes of Brampton, Guelph, Kitchener, Toronto, Oshawa, and Waterloo, among other great places. If Mitch likes it, it's got to be great.
Did somebody say Skip?
And speaking of great, so happy to bring in today's guest. Again, he joined us back in November and now fresh for game 1 of round 2 of the Stanley Cup Playoffs. You see him on your screen right there. WWE superstar, Hall of Famer, big-time Leafs fan. It's Adam Edge Copeland. What's up, buddy? How are you?
How you doing? I'm still up in the mountains, so my signal might still be choppy. I apologize.
Hey, no worries, buddy. Great of you to make some time for me, man. How you feeling, dude? You were there on Saturday. We got game 1 tonight.
Man, I was there for the comeback game, the 4-1 third period comeback win in overtime. I was there for the second round clinch, and it was amazing just to be a part of those two things. I was also at Marner's point streak Leaf record that happened down in Tampa this year too. So, man, I've been there for some pretty cool ones, man, and it was the relief that you could feel from Leafs fans that were in the house in Tampa was tangible. It was a fun game to be at. Finally, after 19 years, just to make the second round. But this squad and this core, they want more than that. That's just the first step, right? But it's good that the city of Toronto could exhale and kind of just enjoy and savor that for a couple of days.
Oh, we're feeling good. We're feeling great. And I have to ask you, what took more out of you, fighting the demon Finn Balor at WrestleMania inside Hell in a Cell, or watching your beloved Leafs in person try to exercise their first round demons?
Well played. I felt pretty good about what they were going to do. It seems like they play with a lot less pressure, at least in the playoffs, not in the regular season, maybe so much, but in the playoffs, it just seems they play with less pressure on their backs. Toronto's, man, it's the epicenter of hockey, and I know Montreal has that distinction possibly too, but it's a lot of pressure on those guys. And I fear is the year where they finally kind of come into their leadership and their maturity. You got to remember when all of these guys were drafted and this core started, they were kids, man. I mean, maybe not kids on paper, but in terms of all of this being, thrown in your lap. And don't get me wrong, I think as a hockey player, you Leafs and try and this team that can win a cup, it's an amazing thing. But the growing years, and you're doing it under that microscope, that's a lot of pressure. And I feel like this year they've finally especially with the addition of guys Shen and McCabe and Achari and O'Reilly. Like, those were all great pickups, and guys who, outside of McCabe, who never had a playoff game, have been there and done it. And I think that's huge.
What's it like been enjoying this experience, with your kids and your friends and your family, and just how long it's taken to get to this level? I'm sure it's been so amazing for you.
I mean, my first vivid memories as a child were watching Lanny McDonald score in Game 7 overtime against the Islanders past Billy Smith. That's the first thing I can remember as a kid, sitting there with my grandfather, all my uncles down in the basement, shag carpeting. And so to fast forward all these years later, because that was 77, 78, to go to that game with my 6-year-old and for her to be invested. Like, she loves the Leafs. Um, she kind of didn't have a choice. She started watching the games with me, but then she really started to enjoy the game. And she might have been one of the only ones chanting "Go Leafs, go" at the top of her lungs in breaks, in gaps in the game. She was just screaming her head off. It was amazing. It was so much fun. And then to be there with Jay, with Christian, and his daughter is surreal, but really amazing. Because we grew up with this team, and we grew up through a lot of lean years, and yeah, it's just fun to see, and also they're a fun team to watch. They really are. I mean, the makeup of the team has changed a little bit, but they're still a really fun team to watch.
Who impressed you the most in round one? Like, that was the cool story for me, is how many guys stepped up, whether it was Matthew Nyes or Morgan Riley, made us all forget about the tough regular season he had. It seemed like everybody did their part to get over that hump, eh?
Well, for me, Morgan Riley, longest tenured Leaf, been there scrapping, clawing, biting his way through all of these seasons, right? Getting dumped on throughout the regular season. And I personally don't think he's been 100% healthy after that collision in the Islanders game. And I think now we're just starting to see, maybe he's as close to healthy as he's been throughout the season. And he's showing what he can do and showing why he was picked when he was picked and why he's the longest tenured Leaf. Um, One thing about Toronto I've never understood is they will just dump on people instead of supporting people. And so I'm glad everybody's on the Mo bandwagon, but they should have been there throughout the entire season, because that dude has been hustling. He never stops hustling. And so that for me, I'm really, really glad to see that he's getting his proper respect. I think Nyes, man, to be put in that situation, and not only part of the starting lineup, but they put in some high pressure situations. He's been out there for winning goals. He's been out there. He's been out there, in penalty kills and in a lot of high pressure situations for a guy that just finished playing in college. I think that's been huge. And then being there live to watch what Luke Shen does. I don't think you fully appreciate all the things that he does on the ice until you're there watching it on the ice. And man, he's a calming influence back there, especially without Jake Muzzin. And I feel like him and McCabe have really, really stepped in with what was a really big hole with Jake Muzzin.
We call it the Leafs morning take bump. Shenner's actually good friends with my co-host Jay Rosehill, so he's a winner. We had Matthew Nyes on the show a couple months back. We had you on. You win at WrestleMania. So everything's are coming up. Leafs morning take. What's your take on this series of the Florida Panthers, and how shocked are you that it's not the Boston Bruins, dude?
I mean, I think everybody's pretty shocked, all the way down to like the scheduling. I think everyone assumed the two games are going to be in Boston, and I think they're scrambling. I know I didn't expect it, because I was planning to get up for a game, but I was like, oh, I can't get up Tuesday because I have career day for the girls Wednesday, and then I coach their softball game Thursday. Um, yeah, it's. I think everybody's surprised, but if you watch the series, Florida out hustled them. And even though they were down 3-1, they were never really out of a game. And I think they've bought in. I truly think it was that I don't know if meltdown's the right word that Paul Maurice had on the bench in the Toronto game, but they've rallied around that, and that's dangerous, especially. I mean, you got to figure what a high those guys should be in on. They just beat on paper historically the best team ever in terms of numbers, and they did it coming back from 3-1, and they did it by winning in TD Garden. They're playing with house money right now, so there's no the difference in pressure is astronomical, really. So they're going to come out and they're going to play freewheeling, I would think, with a lot less weighing them down, possibly. But I also think the Leafs finally get into the second round. You know they're going to be prepared. Playoff hockey, you have to be. No matter who the opponent is, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a grind. And they got a lot of players that are built for the playoffs. So it's going to be hard. You know, their wins, I think there was one that, they won pretty handily, but they were 3-0-1 against the Panthers, but they were tight games. They're a good team. They got to be to beat the Bruins like that.
It's funny.
So it's going to be hard.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I was just going to say that I brought up on the show yesterday. No worries. No, us too. I was just saying that I brought up yesterday that the Leafs had a big role in this. I think you even look back, I think it was, 2 weeks left in the regular season. Florida was in town. I think that was the start of the Alex Lyon run where they went on a crazy tear and made the postseason. But the Leafs were up 3-2 in that game. The Panthers tied it up, then won it in OT. It's sort of ironic that we're in this scenario now and it's the Leafs and Panthers, eh?
Yeah, it really is. Because that was where Lyon first started, and it went from there. And I was watching a lot of their games too, and I was like, okay, this is a different team now. Like they are playing to get into the playoffs. See a team playing that desperate. They bought in, and you can tell they still have. Like to be down 3-1 to Boston, everyone assumed it was just going to be either a sweep or maybe a 5-game series. Gets to 6, they're going back to Florida now. The discussion started to change because now you're starting to see dents in Boston's armor, and I don't know if that was just it's excelling at such a high level and it all catching up to them. They had some injuries down the stretch. I'm sure that was part of it, but Florida ended up playing better game. So it's going to be hard, and it did. It started to happen. It's like the spark was lit in that Toronto game.
So lastly, as you know, SmackDown will be in Toronto coming up in August. What are the chances we get like a cameo appearance from like a Matthews or a Marner or an O'Reilly like in the ring? I think that'd be incredible.
It would be very cool. I don't know. I guess it'll probably end up depending on how things pan out, whether they want to, pop in for appearances. But I'm guessing I'll be there. I found out I got traded to SmackDown, so yeah, I guess I'll be there.
I was gonna kick off the interview and ask you, talk about you being drafted to SmackDown. Big weekend for you, and you witnessing your first round Demons exercise. Like it was a whirlwind for you, right? Like highs and highs and highs. No.
Yeah. I mean, I rarely pay attention when I'm not in the grind of wrestling because I'll just drive myself crazy. So I didn't find out I was drafted until somebody told me over to SmackDown. So I'm kind of annoyed if I'm being honest because I coach my girls' softball and basketball teams on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So that's frustrating, but make the best of it.
I like that. I like that answer, and I'm looking forward to you taking down Roman Reigns, my guy. Appreciate your time and looking forward to round 2 here. Go Leafs, go, okay?
All right. Have a good one. Thanks.
You too. Take care. Absolute best, man. I love that guy. Absolute beauty. And, of course, you can catch him on SmackDown on Friday nights. That's our guy, Edge, the Rated R superstar, Adam Edge Copeland, joining us here on Leafs Morning Take, and hope you enjoyed that. Again, apologies for the choppiness. He is in the mountains. He did mention this. He did talk about this a couple months back, but the audio I thought was pretty good, so I kept going a bit with the interview. I'll get to the chat in mere moments, but first, the Botano wrap-up is presented by Botano.ca. The game starts now, 19+. Please play responsibly. And I will say one of the angles I do like early on in this series is the over. I'm forecasting tons of offense, I should say. They had 4 matchups in the regular season. Again, you throw everything you see in the regular season, generally speaking, out the window. But I think 2 of those hit the over, 2 hit the under late in the regular season. So I would say I'm going to look at the over 6.5 in this game around -120, at least to start this series, because I do forecast a lot of offense. I think you look at the regular season, both teams scoring a lot of goals, and even in the postseason. So I like a look at the over. Maybe tell me in the chat how you feel about that, and appreciate all the sentiments regarding edge in the chat. A lot of people just generally pumped up about game 1 tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun, folks. Again, we've been waiting 19 years to get to this moment for game 1 of round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Josh writes in, I say Leafs in 5. They should only be allowed to use American players. I love that. Everybody's talking about the whole thing about not being allowed to have non-American residents at the game in the States. I can't believe that's been such a big time story. But again, people are still talking about that they're trying to, I guess, hold Leafs fans out of the games in Sunrise. Easier said than done. I think they'll find a way. Leafs Nation in general travels really, really well. Just looking at the chat moving forward here, everybody's talking about tickets as well. Yeah, it's been crazy in terms of the amount of money people are spending on tickets for the Maple Leafs, even at Scotiabank Arena. Maybe it makes more sense to fly to Florida and watch a game there if you can get your hands on tickets. But again, we'll leave it at that. Appreciate all the sentiments. Again, our apologies when it comes to the video in that interview, but I really did not want to miss out on having Edge on the show. I'm a big-time wrestling fan, as you guys know that. I was a big fan of him. He's a local product from Orangeville, big-time Leafs fan. And from the sounds of it in the chat, sounds like the audio was good enough to carry on. So I'm happy I made that decision to stick with it. So I appreciate that. I hope you all enjoyed the interview. And again, if you want to see more interviews like Edge, subscribe to our YouTube page at the Leafs Nation 401, at the Leafs Nation 401. A lot of great things ahead for you over the coming months, coming days, and hopefully this long playoff run for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Should mention a wrap, Jay Rosehill back in the saddle tomorrow. So we'll get his thoughts on game 1 and also look ahead to game 2 coming up on Thursday night at Scotiabank Arena. So again, many thanks to everybody in the chat, to my main man, Adam Edge Copeland, for dropping by, and of course, producer Alex. Fantastic job as per usual. I'm Nick Alberga. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Take care and enjoy game 1. Take care, everybody.